Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah. So let's get started today with the topic of volunteerism, looking at it from an Islamic perspective. I'm really excited about this topic, and I hope we all find it beneficial, inshallah. And the most important thing is not just to get entertained, right? But to use this information to make an impact, to do something with the information that we learned today, inshallah ta'ala. Now, before we get started, again, remember the rules. I hope I don't have to keep repeating it every time. And since you're already, leaders in the making, so inshallah, we expect cooperation in raising hands and so forth, right? And talking only when it's your turn, so we don't have to repeat that every time. All right, are we ready? Okay, let's get started. Bismillah. Now, I'm going to show you something. Stretch forth your hands, Ya Rasulullah. Now, can you guess who said that? I'll give you a clue. It has to be a Sahabi, right? So which Sahaba said these words, stretch forth your hands, Ya Rasulullah? I know it's a little bit complicated just giving you that information, but let's see if anybody can guess it. Go ahead and you can type now. Anybody can type, go ahead. Nope, no, not Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. No, not Umar radiallahu anhu either. No, none of the four Khalifatul Rashideen. Wait. Who's that? Not Bilal, not Aisha radiallahu anhuma. Okay, I think we're not getting. Looks like nobody got it right. I'll give you few more tries. Anas bin Malik, no, not in this case. Maybe we got the right answer. Okay, let's hear a few more quickly. Just a few seconds. I'm going to open up the chat again if you know the answer. Okay, Leiba, Naeem, Umar, you all, you don't need to raise hands right now. I'm just asking for open answers if anybody can guess. Okay, looks like nobody can guess. I will give you the answer now. No, we're not asking for the names of Sahabas you remember, right? But this particular thing was said by a particular Sahaba. Let's say in response to what he said these following words. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the following ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون. So who is it that would loan Allah a goodly loan so He may multiply it for him many times over? And it is Allah who withholds and grants abundance, and to Him you will be returned. So when this ayah was returned, there was a Sahabi who asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about, is it really so? And before this happened, let me narrate what happened. Okay, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, an orphan came to him. An orphan came to him and asked him, or told him that he was trying to construct a wall in his house. He was trying to construct a wall in his house, and the wall was going onto his neighbor's tree. There was a neighbor's palm tree over there, and in order to construct the wall for this orphan's house, he had to take down the tree. So when Rasulullah approached this Sahabi in terms of taking down the tree so that this orphan can construct the wall in his house, the Sahabi refused and said, no, it's my property and I cannot do that. Then Rasulullah made a great offer to this person. He asked him, what if you get a tree in Jannah in return? And now the Sahabi that in question who said these words was none other than Abu Darda radiallahu anhu. And he said, would this offer hold for anybody else too, Ya Rasulullah? And then Rasulullah said, yes, this offer for a tree in Jannah would hold true. So this Sahabi ran after the other one. Abu Dahda ran after the other Sahabi. He found him and he said, "You know my farm, don't you?" And everybody knew his farm, Abu Dahda's farm. He had a huge farm with 600 or more trees. Some narrations say 600, others say 400, others say more. But vast garden of date palm trees. So he said, he told the other Sahabi, "Would you want all of my garden for that one tree in return?" And he said, "Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?" He said, "No, I'm serious." So of course I would take it. I would take the offer. So he exchanged this whole farm of 600 plus trees for that one tree that was blocking the orphans' wall construction plans, right? And then he gave away that one tree in charity. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was delighted at this, and he promised him, of course, many trees in Jannah, or a tree in Jannah, one of the two. So when he returned to his house, which was in this farm, and then he told his wife to empty up, and then told him why, and then he narrated what happened, and she said, "What do you think?" She said, "Are you crazy? Where will we live? Are you out of your mind? How could you do such a thing? For what did you do this for? Now we've got to suffer." No, she said, "That's amazing deal. What a wonderful deal." And she was happy that her husband reserved a place in Jannah for them. So how many wives do we see today? Even if I'm sure it's none of you who are listening over here, but we see if say the husband donated something, and then you might hear an answer when he came home, "What did you do this? Why did you give away this much money? We need the money," and so forth. But look at this wife of this Sahabi. What was her response? So they were about to leave, and not only that, one of the son was about to eat a date that was lying around in the farm. Then he mentioned that this date does not belong to us. In one of the narrations it is mentioned, it has to be verified, and he did not even let his son eat that one date from that vast 600 dates that he owned, because he had given away the orchard already. So what an amazing story, right? What was the level of īmān of this Sahaba? And then when Rasulullah commanded, and when Allah commanded with an ayah, they were immediately responding. So that is, so anybody heard this story before? I know you couldn't remember I'm sure a lot of you might have heard of this story before. Yes. Okay, a lot of you have heard it before. Good. Alhamdulillah. And some of you have not. Today's topic is about volunteerism, right? Now, can somebody define volunteerism? What is volunteerism? Let's hear a few hands raised now. Only those who raise your hands. Let me just hear. Okay, that's enough. Good. You can stop. I just need to hear a few answers. So we'll go to Abdul Rashid. Abdul Rashid, you can go ahead and type. And just a few names that I call out, please. Abdul Rashid, Umar bin Ahmed, I think you raised your hands before, but if you know the answer, you can type also. Saima Kamran, I think you also raised your hands. Imaduddin and Huda Khatib. The 4 or 5 names that I called, you can go ahead and type your answers. Only the ones. Okay, Umar says, taking initiatives. Okay, just the ones who I called out, please. Okay, yes. Huda, to willingly help out someone, some cause without expectation of any returns. Okay, good. Help others without any return. Okay, only the ones who I called out, please. And Omar says taking initiatives and carrying duties. Okay, taking initiatives, doing our duties, social reforms for the sake of Allah. All good answers. And some of the others who I called out, I think I called out Imaduddin, and that's all, right? Imaduddin, if you want to also type your answer. All right, volunteerism is to give our skills freely to the benefit of the community. Okay, yeah, we're just exactly. So more or less, you are all on the right track. It can be described in official definition as giving your time and energy freely and by choice without concern for any gain, right? So without any concern for financial gain, especially. So you're not looking for something in return. You're not looking for somebody to pay you, but you're giving away your time and energy freely, and it could be your money also, right, for charities and so forth, by choice without concern. But specifically, time and energy by choice without any concern for financial gain. Some of the other names for community service, it's also known as, or volunteerism, as community service, charity work, neighborliness, citizenship, public service, community action, community involvement, right? So these are all the other names that you may hear for community service. Now, just hold on one second. I want to take your opinion on something. So just give me a second when I turn this poll on, and you can enter your opinion on it. Just give me 1 second. The question is, have you done some type of community service before? If yes, in what field? So of the answers that are available, go ahead and select your answers. Option 1 was no. Second option was yes in religious volunteering like dawah and teaching and so forth, Islam. The third option was some kind of educational activity like, teaching some kids free of cost, some classes in the community like Arabic or English or, whatever the subject may be. Third or fourth option was in healthcare, something related if you have some experience in healthcare, first aid, or you're a doctor or something. And then the fifth option was relief work, and then the sixth was other. So the result looks like option number 2, which was religious, some type of volunteerism, almost 40%. And as we can see, so quite a bit of you have some experience doing that. So about 47 of the ones who answered. And option 3 was the highest, which was an education related, about 15%, 19 people. MashaAllah, very good. And the third highest was some other ones that we haven't heard of before, or that's not on the list. And then followed by that, about 8% or 10 users had no experience before. And then healthcare, about 5.5%, and 4% in doing actual relief work. Okay, mashallah. So you can see this topic is not new for most of you. A lot of you have already volunteered. So our perspective is to look at historical perspective, look at our predecessors, look at our Sahabas, look at people from our history, how they had contributed their time, their wealth, their money, their energy into transforming societies, right? How were their characters built? They're centered around this aspect of giving back to the community, about volunteerism. So we'll be looking at that as we go on, and also we'll be looking at a few modern examples. Okay. So let me share a modern example with you now. This is a person a lot of you might have heard of. So let's take a look at that. So before that, I wanted to share this ayah with you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الشيطان يعيدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعيدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. So shaitan threatens you with poverty and orders you to immorality, while Allah promises you forgiveness from him and bounty. And Allah is all encompassing and knowing. So there is one person in this modern world that we might have heard of, Abdurrahman as-Sumayy, who is a living example of overcoming the stinginess that shaitan threatens us with. So let's look at this video and let's look at the example of what he has done.
في دكتور عبد الرحمن سميط في هذه المحاضرة، لكن شوف العالم كله اليوم يسأل عن أخبار هذا الرجل. ماذا فعل هذا الإنسان؟ عنده علم لكن ليس بالعلم كغيره من العلماء. يمكن عنده منصب، إيش عنده؟ أي منصب عنده؟ هو رئيس لجنة، صارت جمعية بس. ليش العالم كله اليوم يتساءل عن أخباره وصحته؟ بل في ليلة مرضه التي انتشرت من دخل إلى الشبكة العنكبوتية والتويتر بالذات ما وجد أحدا يتحدث إلا عن هذا الرجل الجبل، بل ملايين في أفريقيا في تلك الليلة اهتزت، وأيتام بكوا، وأرامل أقمنا الليل دعاء له، وفي صلاة الفجر الناس يدعون له ويقنتون له. هنيئا لرجل لا زال على فراش المرض والناس يدعون له بالخير. ماذا فعل؟ ما ترك شيئا لنفسه. أعطي جائزة الملك فيصل، 1,000,000 ريال، ما يقارب أكثر من 70,000 دينار كويتي، في وقتها تسوى اليوم يمكن 1,000,000. اليوم الدينار ما يسوى، لكن في زمنهم قبل سنوات طويلة تعرف كم أخذ منها وكم تصدق بها؟ أخذ منها 0 وتصدق بها كلها. يقول لي بيني وبينه، يقول: البخيل من أبنائي من ينفق نصف ماله لله. هذا نعتبره البخيل فينا. عود أبنائه، عود أهل بيته. جلست زوجته في كندا في دراسته سنوات معه، وهي بنت عائلة وعندها خير، لكن تصدقت به، وظلت سنوات لا تملك إلا 4 أثواب. هذه المرأة الفاضلة التي هي وراء هذا الرجل أيضا، والأبناء الصالحون الذين ضحوا بحياتهم، بأموالهم، بوظائفهم لله جل وعلا، الآن سيخرج من الدنيا كما يخرج غيره. من منا سيخرج بأمواله، بكنوزه، لكن سيبقى رصيده إذا أتى عند الله. أمواله وجهاد وقته ودعوته تسببت بإسلام أكثر من 10 مليون إنسان. بعض ما يصدق، لا صدق. 10 مليون هذه أشخاص، ما بالك بذرياتهم. إلى أن تقوم الساعة كل أعمالهم في ميزان من؟ ميزان هذا الرجل الصالح الذي نسأل الله عز وجل أن يشفيه ويعافيه. ربما تطول به الحياة فيأتي إلى هذا المسجد مرة أخرى، وربما يقدر الله عز وجل أمرا آخر، وربما يجلس هو مريض منذ زمن طويل لكن لا يكف عن الذهاب وعن الدعوة. يقول لي: أحيانا أمشي في مستنقع لا يظهر إلا رأسي، أنا وبعض أصحابي ندخل مستنقعا فيه الله أعلم من الدواب والهوام، ربما تماسيح، ربما ثعابين، غير الحشرات وغير. يقول: نضطر ندخل المستنقع لنجوزه لأن هناك قرية نبلغها دين الله عز وجل. لا يبالي. ومع هذا في نهاية الأمر بين أهله وبين أولاده يقدر الله ما قدر.
Subhanallah. What a great man. What a great man. One man army. He has done so much on his own, right? Since with the help of the support of his family and other great people on his team. They mentioned how many people was mentioned that he helped in bringing towards the fold of Islam in Africa through his efforts in Africa. You can go ahead and exactly. Just imagine 10 million. I mean, is that a number we can even figure out? How can one man be responsible for so much effort? But that's only the tip of the iceberg. You know, behind that, he brought all of these people through his actions, through his examples that he showed. So let's look at some of the accomplishments that he has done. And I don't know why this video keeps popping up. In addition, and then another article it said 7 million, and so I'm thinking it's 10 million might be the more appropriate number. In addition to that, he has supported 9,500 orphans. 95,000 students have been financed through his efforts and through donations that he has raised. 5,700 masjids he's constructed throughout Africa. 200 training centers for women, 860 schools, 4 universities, 102 Islamic centers, 9,500 wells to give water to the poor, especially in countries where drinking water and water is such a scarcity. 51 million Qurans have been distributed in various languages, in both Arabic as well as other African languages, and 7 to 10 million people converted to Islam, reverted to Islam through his hands, including, believe it or not, bishops, priests, and leaders of other Christian missionaries have also converted to Islam through his efforts in Africa, just by looking at this great mountain of an example, mountain of a man. So yes, one man can make an impact. He decided to give us everything, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed his efforts in return, right? So although this seems daunting and overwhelming, we just to reflect on ourselves and see what we are doing. You know, if he can do all of this, maybe we can do one by a millionth of what he does, right? So that way we can at least make some impact in this world before we leave, before it's our time. Great man to learn from and take an example from. Now, I wanted to ask you another question. So the question is, who benefits from doing good? Who benefits from volunteerism? You know, Nalit, Leiba, Salman, Amoudi, you all can enter your answers. Those who I call out, please. Only those who call out. And yes, who are all the parties who benefits from volunteerism? Okay. All right. So like Nabila said, the person doing the good and society who are benefited from it. Yes, that's similar to the other answers what people have said. Exactly. You know, and most of us, the person who benefits the most is us, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah. من عمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن أساء فعليها وما ربك بظلام للعبيد. So whoever does righteousness, it is for his own soul, and whoever does evil is against it, against his soul. And your Lord is never unjust to his servants. So whoever does good, righteousness, at the end of the day, the person who's benefiting the most is him, and especially if the intention was right, it would be reflected on the day of judgment. Right? Now, why volunteerism? Yes, we learned in this ayah, from this ayah, that it's going to benefit us, it's going to benefit ourselves in the akhirah. That in the akhirah, it's going to be a huge reward, right? Or multiplied many times when we return, as long as our intention was correct. Now, it's not just the benefit in the akhirah. Yes, it is the most important benefit that we should be concerned about, and that's the reason we should be doing. But there are some added benefits of volunteerism, some side effects that we can see in this world itself. So I'm going to show you some options now, back to the poll, and I want your opinion on basically what of the other reasons other than the benefit in akhirah, other than ajr and reward in the akhirah, which of the following advantages of doing community service do you feel would be the most beneficial for you, right? So again, the intention is only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for ajr in the akhirah. But what of the other potential rewards do you think you find attractive or do you feel is the most beneficial? So we'll take some comments on that. And the options, the first option is happiness and contentment that we experience from doing community service. Second is meeting new people. Third option, developing leadership skills and teamwork skills. Excuse me. Fourth is increasing or improving our communication skills. Fourth, becoming a part of community. And fifth, cure for materialism. So what are some of the benefits that you feel that you would be most attracted to, other than ajr and reward in the akhirah? Okay, seems like the first option is the highest. We have 37% who chose happiness and contentment, and that's increasing even more now. It's above 40%. Then the second place is tied, oh no, wait, the second place is developing leadership and teamwork skills, about 11% said that. Closely followed by cure for materialism, around 9%, and becoming a part of our community, that's also 9%. Very good. So we saw some different responses, so I think we're going neck to neck. We'll stop the poll there. And we can see that there are many benefits in addition to we can experience in this dunya itself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses your works of community service. We can get, of course, the happiness and contentment that we get when we help somebody and we see the smile in their faces and them thanking us and showing us that just seeing that smile itself gives us so much happiness, and we feel so content working with those people that have much lesser than us. When we become more thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's definitely, yes, one of the main reasons, other than the ajr, that we can experience in this world. And of course, by doing community service, we get to meet new people from different backgrounds, from different other peoples who are like-minded, similar to us, that we might not get a chance to meet otherwise. And of course, we get to work on projects that we don't necessarily do at work or at school. So we get to build leadership skills, teamwork skills, improve communication skills. We get to be a part of the community. We develop concern for our community, and we're not only focused on ourselves and getting more and more, right? And we become a part of our community, contributors of our community. And lastly, of course, by involving ourselves more and more in volunteerism, we get focused on helping others, and we don't. And that's one of the best cures for preventing the rush for more and more, right? Piling on for more and more wealth, more and more better phones, better cars, better houses, bigger houses. You know, the human being is wired to get more and more. So when we involve in more volunteerism, we get to change that focus and focus on something else that really builds our akhirah, as well as is very beneficial for the dunya even. Yeah. So we'll end the poll there. Thank you very much for those responses. So let's see another very early example that a lot of you might be familiar with, was the Battle of Tabuk. And a great lesson to learn from this battle before the battle started. You know, when the Romans were encroaching on the Muslim lands up in the north near Tabuk, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the Sahabis to contribute, right? Because there was fundraising for this important jihad to ward off the Romans. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made that call and invited the Sahabas to give whatever they can so that they can fund this important war for the Muslims, then the Sahabas responded. Many people brought many things. You know, Uthman radiallahu anhu bought hundreds of camels, and a lot of his wealth he donated to this battle. Then Umar radiallahu anhu, he made up his mind that today, you know, every single time Abu Bakr is always ahead of me radiallahu anhuma in whatever task that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commands us. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is always on the lead. Today I am going to compete with Abu Bakr. I am going to beat Abu Bakr, so I am going to do a great task. So what Umar did was he went to his house and he divided everything that he had into half. So all his wealth he divided into half, so that the half of his wealth he could donate to answer the call of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now imagine, can any of us part with half our wealth for the sake of Allah? Today there's a call in Asham. You know, there are people who are struggling today in the winter when there is hardly any clothes for many of the refugees. You know, they don't have clothes, and there's so much, you know, funding that's needed for all the work that's going on over there. If there's a call, can we part with half of our wealth for all the wars that are going on today? If there's funding that is asked, can we part with half of our wealth? So this is what Umar did. Even his wife's earring, believe it or not, he took, if his wife had a pair of earrings, he took off one of the earrings and put it in this pile. So he made a huge pile, and he made a bag and a cloth, and he compiled everything that he could, half of everything that he had, and he brought it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was pleased. Rasulullah was very pleased with Umar. Now, after some time, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came, and he came with a bag of a lot of things, but it was much smaller than what Umar had brought. So Umar was happy inside, thinking that today, alhamdulillah, I have beaten Abu Bakr. You know, yusari'una ila al-khayrat, right? They are racing, competing towards good. Today we compete towards getting the next model of the cars and so forth, right? Those days, this is what they were competing towards doing good. So he was happy in his heart that he might have beaten Abu Bakr. When Abu Bakr came, radiallahu anhu, and gave away his whatever he brought. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, and what did you leave for your children, Ya Abu Bakr? And he responded, I left Allah and his messenger. Imagine that. Imagine that. So he brought everything that he had to Allah and his messenger for this, to answer the call of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So imagine the level of these people and compare it to where we are. Even if some person comes and asks us something and we look at our wallets and we see that we only have $100 bills or 100 Riyal bills, and we're thinking, oh, we don't have change, and we shoo away that person, sorry, I don't have change. Imagine that. And imagine the level of these people. May Allah open up our hearts towards giving in His cause like He made these Sahabas do. Ameen. I want to share another instance with you, another ayah with you. Look at this important ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in Surah Al Imran. And let's look at a response of another Sahaba to this ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون وما تنفقوا من شيء فإن الله به عليم. So read that first part of the ayah again. Never will you attain good until you spend what? مما تحبون, from that which you love, and whatever you spend, indeed Allah is knowing of it. Okay, let me get a few more guesses now on another Sahaba who responded to this ayah. Do you know which Sahaba I'm talking about, or I might be thinking about? Go ahead and no need to raise hands for this one. You can go ahead and type if you know the answer. Abu Talha, Abu Bakr, no. Oh wait, I think somebody has guessed the answer. Yeah, I think yes, somebody had guessed it in the beginning. Yes, some of you are correct. It was Abu Talha. Let's see who got it first. I think it was Sana Azhar who mentioned it first. There might be some other people who might have mentioned after that. But exactly. And let's see what happened. Let's see how the Sahabi responded. When this ayah was, this was revealed by Anas radiallahu anhu, he narrated this. So Abu Talha was the wealthiest of all the Ansar in Medina due to the date orchards which he possessed. And of all his possessions, Bayraha was the most beloved to him. So this orchard faced the Masjid Nabawi, and he used to go to this orchard and drink of its wholesome water. So he used to get pristine water from this orchard, right? So when this verse was revealed, you will never attain piety till you spend from that which you love. Abu Talha radiallahu anhu went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah says you will never attain to piety till you spend from that which you love. And of all my wealth, Bayraha is the most beloved to me, and I am giving it in charity. And I hope for its good and treasure from Allah. O Rasulullah, you may utilize it wherever Allah tells you to. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, excellent. This is very profitable wealth. And in some other translation, they said this is a very profitable deal. And he repeated that twice. And this is in Bukhari and Muslim. Subhanallah. Look at the response to the ayah. This is how the Sahabis responded to the Quran. Immediately they looked at themselves, they reflected, and they said, what can I do to respond to this ayah? And they took action. So this is how we should be when we're responding to the Quran, when we're responding to the ayah, the verses the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well as the hadith of the beloved Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Don't forget to say sallallahu alayhi wasallam when we mention the name of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is how, my brothers and sisters, that the Sahaba responded. And this was a very important hadith, a very important event in the history of Islam, because in the history of volunteerism in Islam especially, because this was the first waqf in the history of Islam, first property that was assigned for charitable purposes. So he donated a property or something that he possessed, and for generations that was used for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this event triggered many other waqfs and institutions and lands that were donated for the sake of Allah for various different activities, as we will look at some examples in the slides to come shortly. Now, before we look at some of those waqfs that were created after this hadith, during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and afterwards, let me ask you a question. Let me show you this picture and let me ask you a question based on that picture. Of course, I don't have to tell you what this is. It's a picture of a hotel. But the question is, you know, back in the day, people used to travel all the time, right? During the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahabas, the Tabi'in, the Tabi'in, and later on, people used to travel all the time. And one instance is Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, mentioned that he used to travel with very little money, almost nothing, right? And he used to travel for months in seeking of knowledge and seeking of compiling hadith. So how do you think they survived? They did not have any hotels. It's not possible to stay in the hot desert lands, and you might have animals attacking and so forth. So how did people survive during that time without hotels, without these places when they were traveling, or for Hajj and so forth? But primarily when they were traveling for various, other than, we know they traveled in caravans, but for those other travelers like Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and various other seekers of knowledge who were traveling across the world with very little money for the sake of knowledge and for other purposes, not in a group or a caravan, but individually, how did they survive? Let's go ahead and raise some hands now. Okay, so we see phase, okay. Yes, they used to stay at the homes of believers. Very good. Their trust was firm on Allah. Yes, that was there too, but the people also helped out. Okay, Asma, they used to stay at other people's houses as guests. Okay, excellent. Yes, for 3 days. Very good. So I think we have the... Okay, excellent, excellent. So we got the answer there from different people have mentioned. Yes, they used to, like I think some people, like Zulaka mentioned, that people used to allow people to stay in their homes, and they also used to provide them with food. Yes. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed us, right, in an interpretation of one of the hadith, that, you know, it's a right upon your brother Muslim to let them stay in the houses for 3 days at least, and after that is charity. So it is an Islamic requirement, according to the hadith, that we allow guests to stay in our houses for at least 3 days. And after that is optional, right? After that is charity. So the 3 days is a requirement, after that is charity. So the people used to, unlike today, if you go up and knock at some stranger's house, some Muslim's house, and tell them, I want to stay at your house, what would be the response today? They'd be staring at you. Are you out of my mind? Who are you? I don't even know you, and you want to stay in my house? But back in the day, it was not that way, right? People used to take these hadiths to heart, and anybody who knocks on their door, any Muslim, fellow Muslim, they used to allow hospitality, to allow them to stay in their houses and give them food and water and so forth, and support them. And a lot of times, even if they wanted to stay above that, they would also help them, right? And this was not just the houses, but even institutions were set up. There were places to guest houses, as we call it today, inns that we call today, but they won't charge them anything. It was on behalf of the government. They would let them, these visitors, stay for free and provide them with food and water in many parts of the Muslim world. These were also present in the later on times. We'll be looking at some of these examples from history. All right. So let's look at some of the historical examples of what happened, of what are some of these institutions that have been established, and how some people across history in the Muslim world, how they responded to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we talked about the Battle of Tabuk and how the Sahabis responded to that. And there are so many more examples that we can look at throughout history. Some of these I will go into more detail a bit later on. And one example I wanted to share with you was that of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, the famous commander of Islam, the famous ruler of the Muslim world who liberated Jerusalem, right? But there are some other things that he did that not maybe a lot of people know. One thing was that he set up a lot of masjids and schools, madrasas and masjids across the places that he ruled, especially in Egypt. He also ruled in Syria and other places. He set up rabats, places for rest, especially for travelers and students of knowledge to go ahead and learn and rest and so forth, rest houses that I was talking about earlier. He also set up wells and other institutions, hospitals, and I don't know about hospitals, but I'm sure he built similar institutions for healthcare and so forth. But the interesting thing was that he would, like today when we see, if you go to universities in the West or in the East, you would see when people donate, they would donate a lot of money for some certain university, and they would name the university after them, or they would name buildings in the university after them, right? But in what Salahuddin did was he did not put it in his name. He built all of these things in the names of other people so that people don't know that he's the one who did it. So he put it in the name of his leaders, government leaders, ministers, helpers, and even friends. So his intention was pure and free from seeking fame and purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So what a great example that Salahuddin Ayyubi established during his rule, when Allah granted him with power, instead of just wasting it away and building palaces for himself, he spent it in such wonderful causes, and of course his priority was also the jihad, so that he could defeat the crusaders and give victory to make the word of Allah the highest, right? So even his inheritance for his own personal wealth, he had minimal wealth. It was told that his inheritance, he died at the age of 57, and his whole estate that he left behind after his death was only 47 dirhams. And dirhams are silver coins, right? Which is not a lot of money. And 1 dinar, 1 gold coin, and 47 silver coins. A great ruler with command of so much land across the Muslim world. This is all he left behind for his children. And that was the level of his piety, his whole life that he spent, and he didn't have any real estate, or he didn't have anything else, right? He didn't leave behind any of these other things. And the other interesting thing was that once they liberated, I believe it was Palestine, then he noted that he was traveling across and seeing his commanders. He noticed after some time that one of his commanders had built a beautiful house on the shore of the island of one of the places they conquered. And he got extremely angry at this general, at this minister or general, and then he scolded him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us to focus on jihad, and when we build these big houses and palaces, it will divert our hearts from serving Allah in his cause. So he made him give the house away, right? So he did not even let him have that house. So that was the level of service that these people had to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Let's look at some of the other examples that I've put on the slide. Some of the other examples are, before I go into the modern examples, let's look at the educational institutions that were built. There were so many educational institutions that were built during this time. Some of them were the madrasas that I mentioned to you about. And the interesting thing was for these madrasas, and there were smaller institutions that was called kutabs, right? Kutabs, were smaller schools for early school, and madrasas were like higher secondary education and so forth. So these two institutions were set up for children and young adults for free of charge. So anybody could go and study, be it rich or be it poor, they can go and study free of cost in these institutions that were set up across the Muslim world. Believe it or not. And now look how much they're charging for universities these days, right? In some cases, tens of thousands of dollars for tuition and hundreds of, 10,000s of riyals and rupees, lakhs of rupees to get into medical school. And in those times, the Muslim governments and the waqfs of people, the people that had generated waqfs, they had enabled people to get free education. And of course, the first major university that was also set up in the Muslim world, Al-Azhar University, no, before that in Morocco, that was an institution that was set up. That was the first one, and then even Azhar was set up, and these institutions were giving education free of cost to Muslims. The whole concept of degrees or ijaza was started from Muslim universities, believe it or not. Other free services, they used to have taqiyya or restaurants that used to give free food to travelers and people. There were wells that were constructed and donated as waqfs again. So wealthy people would donate wells and other land to be used by the government to serve people free of cost. So all of these institutions were generated for giving services to people free of cost. So some by individuals, others by government and rulers of the times. And the interesting thing was also the hospitals. And do you think they charge for the hospital services, for surgeries? How much does it cost to do a surgery today? Even a small surgery would run so much money, right? In those days, many rulers set up hospitals like the Al-Adadi Hospital and the Noori Hospital. These hospitals were constructed free of cost. Not constructed. Of course, it took a lot of money to construct them, but they would give services free of cost to people, no matter what it was. And sometimes even to non-Muslims, they were giving free of cost. And in the same time, Europe was in such a bad condition. In the European hospitals, all the sick people used to be put in one big room, right? One big hall, and it used to stink so much, and then the nurses used to cover their noses with multiple clothes so that they can escape from the stink of the hospitals over there. And it was so bad hygiene. People used to die because of the bad hygiene conditions in the hospitals. On the other hand, in the hospitals of the Muslims, it was following such high hygiene standards, such high research, and the latest technologies were being utilized, and so much services were provided. Just to give you an example, they used to give services for, they used to have a number of cleaners and assistants and so many different roles that used to be played. They used to have a place called the Khazanat Ash-Shirab, or potion store, like a modern day pharmacy. So a lot of the things that we see in modern pharmacies were started in the Muslim world also. And they had like in charge doctors, they had separate wards, like a room for diarrhea, a room for hearts, a room for orthopedics, a room for broken limbs and mental diseases. So they had put sections and wards in these hospitals. They used to give free services, and they used to see that they used to wait until a person can eat a whole chicken and bread. And when he was able to eat so much, they would say that this person is healthy now, and they used to release him. And not only that, they used to give him a month or 2 months salary and fresh clothes, so that as soon as he's released or she's released from the hospital, they don't have to worry about working, and they can enjoy some free services before they can start, right? So this was the level of volunteerism and service orientedness that the Muslim world possessed in our history. And you can research these, you can Google these, or look at Wikipedia and other resources for more details on these hospitals, these specific hospitals, Al-Adadi, Al-Noori, Mansouri hospitals that were started by different rulers across the Muslim world. Okay, so those are some examples I wanted to share with you. We can talk a lot, probably the entire session about this topic, about looking at history, the things our great predecessors did. And this is not just it. Let's look at a modern day example. You might have heard of Sulaiman al-Rajhi, right? Sulaiman al-Rajhi, he started off poor. He didn't have much. But in his recent interview, I think in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, he said that I started off poor and I went back to being poor. What did he mean by that? Can any of you tell me what he meant by that? Yes, you can go ahead and raise hands now. Okay, Maryam, Salman, Sulaiman, Hamidullah, and Shahara. The 4 of you or 5 of you, you can type in now. Yes, a lot of you are very close. He gave out all his money. He spent all his money in charity. He donated all his wealth, Sahara says. And yes, more or less you're very close. So for those who don't know Sulaiman al-Rajhi, we'll post an article on the forum, or you can also look it up online. But he is a multi-billionaire, right? He started off with not much, but he was a businessman, and he was poor initially. So with his hard work and by the barakah and blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he established a huge business empire, and he became one of the wealthiest people in the world. I think at that time he was the 120th most wealthiest man in the world, and his wealth was in the billion, more than $1 billion. He started the Al-Rajhi Bank, one of the first Islamic banks. And then he also started Wataniya, an organic poultry farm, a huge mega farm, and among other enterprises that he and his children later on started. So in his interview, he mentioned that he went back to being poor after, he started off poor and he went back to being poor. So what he did was during his lifetime, he distributed all his wealth away, all his wealth. Imagine having billion in or more in wealth, and he gave it away. SubhanAllah, what a big heart he must have. So he didn't cause any harm to his children. So as per the Islamic requirements, you know, after your death, you're supposed to give away or 1/3. The maximum that you can give away in not as prescribed by the Quran is 1/3 of your wealth, right? So 1/3 of your wealth you can give away in which are not prescribed according to the ayah in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa. So that wealth that he's supposed to give his children after his death, he distributed it during his lifetime to all his children. Whoever's wealth what was due according to the Sharia, he distributed it. And then the remaining wealth that he had, you know, of his billion plus estate, he gave it away to waqfs and to charitable institutions that he runs, so that he is left with the bare minimum of just clothes and you know, for his survival, basically the minimum requirement. So what a big heart this man has, right? May Allah accept it from him and give him Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. So that was a great example from modern day example, and there's such a wide variety of charity work that he does. It's hard to list it even. So he has many different institutions. There was a famous institution in the U.S. also that is funded by him, but now I think it's closed down because all the the nonsense going on these days by closing down charitable Islamic organizations without any valid reasons. But anyway, and many institutions. So his work now is focused in Saudi Arabia. So most of his charitable work is going on, and his children's charitable work are going on in Saudi Arabia. And he's doing a lot of in education and in many different orphanages and many different activities, right? It's a great example from modern day as well. So I just wanted to give you that glimpse of throughout history how Muslims have answered the call, rulers as well as common Muslims have answered the call of giving and giving our time, giving our money, giving our energy for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, not to forget that another important area of giving was many Muslims have answered the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give their lives for his sake, right? And jihad fi sabilillah as well. We should not forget that, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that it is the greatest deed. So of course that is the greatest thing that anybody can give, is to give whatever their life. That is the biggest sacrifice anybody can make. So from the time of the Sahabas till today, we can see many examples of that. But that's not the only one. There's an interesting thing. And these examples, a lot of them I got from this book called Civilization of Faith. I highly recommend that you get this book, and I'll post it on the forum later on. But it's basically called let me type it here: Civilization of Faith by Dr. Mustafa Sibai. Okay, so Civilization of Faith by Dr. Mustafa Sibai, and he gives so many examples, not just about volunteerism, but how the Islamic civilization excelled in every area, in being in humanities, in kindness to animals, and racial equality, and so forth. Right, in every single field, how the Islamic civilization excelled in all of those areas, in educational institutions, in medical institutions, and so forth. So I highly recommend that you read that book. So Dr. Sibai, and this book is published by IIPH, the famous publisher, International Islamic Publishing House. So Dr. Sibai mentions in this book that in addition to all of the things that I mentioned, another important work that was going on was people were giving away their wealth, giving away their lands, also to support the various wars that were going on in the Muslim world. So these institutions, the institutions that were set up to provide for food for the mujahideen. So on the borderline, they would set up these institutions to give food to, again, as people would set up these waqf and the charitable institutions for these purposes. And they used to give because there would be attacks of the enemy, so to prevent the Muslim borders, to protect the Muslim borders, they used to establish these institutions. They used to also establish waqfs for producing ammunitions, and as well as giving food and drink. And this had a great impact in warding off the attacks from the Romans during the Abbasid period, as well as the Westerners' attacks during the Crusades against Egypt and Syria. So I'm just quoting from the book. I'm just reading from the book because it's an important passage. And there were also waqfs that provided horses, swords, arrows, and other means of jihad of those who were fighting for the sake of Allah. So it's not just that people gave away their lives, but they also gave away other things that would support the efforts that were going on by the front line by the mujahideen, right? There were also waqfs that were set up to give an income to those who wanted to engage in jihad, and to the army when the state was unable to spend on each individual soldier. So in these cases, when the government was not able to give them funding, they used to set up, the Muslims used to set up waqfs to pay the salaries to take care of the families of these people. Hence, the path of jihad was made easy for every fighter who wanted to sell his life for the sake of Allah in order to purchase therewith paradise as vast as the heavens and the earth. So end of the quotation. And additionally, here's a very interesting quote. This was many years ago, I think 10, 20 years ago that he wrote this book. He also says that look at how things have ended up today, where we devote a single week during which the donations are collected to strengthen and equip the army with weapons. If we had a true social awareness and sincere faith, we could set up factories to provide our army with weapons and equipment every day, not just 1 week of the year, until it would become one of the strongest armies. That is, the Muslim army would become one of the strongest armies and one of the most prepared to face the enemy and defend our homeland. Subhanallah. That was a few 10, 20 years ago that he wrote this. And today, you forget about a single week, a single day, or a single hour. You raise funds for this cause, and immediately there will be the government's knocking on your doors, right? So see how things have changed today, subhanallah. So we need to really wake up, as Muslims, and see and learn from history how our predecessors were, and learn from these examples that we see in history. And see how we can bring back the glory of the Muslims, right? Moving on. Now I wanted to shift gears a little bit. We looked at, so now let's look at some of the leaders of our ummah in history, how these leaders were, and how did these leaders act when they were given leadership positions. So let's look at some things, some examples from history, from how these leaders acted when they were given leadership positions. Okay. This story I wanted to share with you was with Umar and the lady. So when Umar was the Khalifa of the Muslims, he used to go on these patrols across Medina. He used to go, radiallahu anhu, he used to go across these patrols across Medina, and one day he and his servant were going in the outskirts of the city. And they noticed that there was this woman and her kids were screaming and crying and crying. And he approached her and he asked, can he come closer to them? So she said if the intention was good, that he's welcome. If the intention was bad, then he should stay away. So he approached her and he asked what was the problem, why are the kids crying? And she had something in her pot and it was rattling in the meantime. So she said that the kids were hungry, they haven't had food, and she doesn't have anything for food, right? And so she's just boiling some stones in water so that they hear the sound, and the kids would hear that something is being cooked, and then in the meantime they would fall asleep hearing the sound of the pot cooking, the empty pot cooking. SubhanAllah, look at the position of this woman, how poor she was. And she said something along the line that that the Amirul Mu'mineen, the leader of the Muslims, will be questioned because of this, that she is in such condition. So Umar, he does not reveal his identity. He says, how would he know? How would be concerned about what he would answer Allah? He tells the lady, how would he know about your condition, right? There are so many people living in Islamic State. How would he know about your condition? So he said, then if he doesn't know about all our, she said that if he doesn't know about all our conditions, then why is he the Amirul Mu'mineen? So Umar, immediately filled with fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he says, he turns away and he tells her, I will be back. And he goes with his servant to the storage facility of the grains and so forth. And he tells his servant to fill up a huge bag with grains and butter and a container of butter and load it on his back. So his servant was shocked and he said, no, I will carry it for you, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen. He said, no, put it on my back. I want to carry it. So he puts this heavy load on his back and walks all the way back to the outskirts of Medina to this lady's whereabouts. And he gives this, I believe it was flour. So he gives the flour to the lady, and he doesn't just give and walk away, but he tells the lady to bring up some pots and whatever, and he tells her to knead the dough, and he cooks himself. The Amirul Mu'mineen, the leader of the nation of Islam, would cook by himself for the kids of this lady with his own hands. And the steam was boiling out of the pot and going through his beard as the servant was narrating that he would do all of this. And then once the food was ready, he told the woman to give it to her children. And she was happy at this time. And again, she said, she told him that you are better than the Amirul Mu'mineen for doing this activity. And then he said, don't say anything bad if you don't know, something along those lines. And he says, when you see the Amir tomorrow, you will see me. And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't reveal his complete identity, and he goes away, right? And when he goes away, he waits and he hides from a bit far away. And his servant tells him that we shouldn't be spying on them like this. But he doesn't answer anything. Well, he waits until the kids have eaten and fell asleep, and then he turned to his servant and said, you have to think from my point of view that I'm answerable for them, and I just wanted to see that the kids become satisfied and they go to sleep, so that I don't have to, along the lines that I don't have to answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he questions me that I took care of my people or not. So along those lines, that's what his response was. So look at the Amirul Mu'mineen, so humble, and he did not let his pride overtake him, but he served. He was so fearful of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this was his action. That even when the lady insulted the Amirul Mu'mineen or used harsh words against the Amirul Mu'mineen, he didn't reveal his identity, and he just humbly went and carried the entire bag of flour in his own back all the way to Medina and cooked for these kids, and was not satisfied until he was sure that the kids were satisfied and they fell asleep. So this was the condition of our leaders. How many of our leaders today are like this in the Muslim world, or any other leader for that matter? Can we find anybody with an example like this today? So these are the kind of examples that we want to lead when we learn about leadership. Humbleness and fearfulness. They knew about the responsibilities that they had to answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now let's look at another example of another Umar, and I'm sure you might know which Umar I'm talking about. Let's look at another leader when he was made the Khalifa of the Muslims. This was none other than Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and he was one of the great grandchildren of Umar himself through Umar bin Abdul Aziz's mother's side, and he's considered to be one of the one of the rightly guided caliphs, right after the 5 rightly guided caliphs. Many people consider him to be the fifth rightly guided caliph. So why? What is it about Umar bin Abdul Aziz that is so great? So let's look at his life and let's look at some of the examples that he did. You know, when he was among the princes of the Umayyads, who were rulers for the Muslim world for many years. So one Umayyad after another was coming and taking power, and like most of the Umayyads, their families were, you know, a lot of the caliphs at that time. They would support their families and they would give a lot of the wealth of the government to their families, because not all of them were righteous like the earlier caliphs, like the four rightly guided caliphs. So but when Umar bin Abdul Aziz came to power, he was different from the rest of his family, most of the rest of his family. Now, when he came into power, he had a lot of estate, right? A lot of real estate that he owned, and his income was 50,000 dinars annually. So just imagine that, 50,000 gold coins annually. That was the wealth, the income yielded from his properties annually. So when he came into power, he gave it all away, believe it or not. He gave most of his wealth away except the basics, and his income was reduced to 200 dinars per annum. So look at the piety of this person, that when the responsibility of leadership came to him, he gave a lot of his wealth, most and all of his wealth away, because he feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he would be answerable to Allah. And not only that, even his wife had such a big heart. His wife was a princess. And what do we mean by that? Fatima, his wife's name, was the daughter of a Khalifa. Her brothers were Khalifas, and her husband was a Khalifa. So she was surrounded by rulers, surrounded by wealthy people at that time, and she had all the wealth that we can imagine, such a lady with so much wealth. But when Umar's wife Fatima, when Umar bin Abdul Aziz got into power, he told her wife that I cannot have you have all of this wealth, because a lot of this wealth was gotten through illegal channels, through the Baytul Mal and other purposes. That was the people of the Muslims. And when I am Khalifa, you know, I'm answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you want to stay with me, then you have to get rid of all of this wealth. You want to give it away and return it to the Baytul Mal. Now, what did Fatima say? Did she say that I'm going to leave you, I'm going to divorce you, and I'm going to keep my wealth? No. She gave all her wealth away to the Baytul Mal, and she stuck with her husband, and she was obedient to her husband, and she's considered the leader of the Zuhada, right? The leader of the Zuhud among the women. So what a great woman who was able to sacrifice all her wealth because of the requirements of her husband. And not only that, when Umar eventually passed away, the next Khalifa approached her and told her that I can give you back all your wealth now that Umar is gone, so you don't need to worry about it. Let me return all your wealth from the Baytul Mal. And she said, I was sincere to him when he was alive, and I will remain sincere after he died, and I don't want any of that wealth back. So this was what a great example she was to the women of this ummah. And there are many other women like that, many other examples that we can learn from, right? So he was so just, and he was such a good ruler, and he did so much. He built so many roads, he built so many institutions for the people. He took care of the poor, he took care of even the non-Muslims, he took care of even his enemies, that he did not torture them or anything, but he dealt with them in a kind manner. So this was the way he dealt with people, giving away his wealth, giving away the people, spending the wealth of the government in so many good causes throughout his time. And he made so many reforms that the annual revenue from Persia alone also increased from 28 million dirhams to 124 million dirhams. So he was really a good governor also of the Ummah, and the benefit of the Ummah was spread across the Muslim world. because of his efforts. Now I wanted to share with you the slide that it says, what was his inheritance of such a wealthy man, such a ruler of the Muslim world? What was his inheritance? Anybody can guess what his inheritance was? What did he, the inheritance of his children, what did he leave behind? If you want to type in, you can go, you don't need to raise hands, go ahead and type in a few answers. So just see if somebody can get the right answer. Go ahead and type now. You don't need to raise hands for this answer. You can go ahead and type. Let's just, here, okay, Saduddin says nothing, Quran and Sunnah, nothing, true faith. Okay. So, yes. Okay, 11 dinars says Naeem. Okay. Nothing, he teaches Surah Waqia, he was sincere to him. So many answers there. He means, so when he passed away, the inheritance he left for his children, knowledge and taqwa, 2 dinars. Yeah, Quran and Sunnah. Okay, good. But good responses. So we'll take a look at the exact good education. Definitely, he left good education for his children. So we'll stop there for now. Good comments. So the historians have recorded a couple of different answers for what his inheritance was. And in one instance, they say that he left behind 17 dinars was all he left behind. And in another instance, they say 21 dinars. Okay. So that's not a lot of wealth, right? 17 gold coins. And you know what? He did not even have his own house. He gave everything away, so he rented his house from others. He did not even own his own house. And he had 11 sons. The interesting thing is one of his cousins who became a Khalifa later on after him, Hisham bin Abdul Malik, also had 11 sons. Now with this minimum amount of wealth that Umar bin Abdul Aziz left behind, he instructed that a portion of that wealth be used for settling up his debts and so forth, and the rent that he owed for the house that he was living in and so forth. So a portion of his wealth was spent in taking care of his debt and so forth. And the remaining wealth was given to his children, which was only approximately 1 dinar per son. Okay, so 1 gold coin per son was what this great king, this Khalifa, left for his children, for his 11 sons. And the other Khalifa that I mentioned, Hisham, his cousin, Umar's cousin, he left how much? He left approximately 1 million dinars each for his 11 sons. What a great disparity. But look at this, the person who narrated this story, Abdurrahman ibn Qasim, he mentioned that later on, many years away, after his death, he noticed his sons, that Umar bin Abdul Aziz's son was giving away hundred horses for jihad. So they were wealthy, they became wealthy later on, and not only wealthy, they were spending in Allah's cause by giving horses and so forth for his cause, Allah's cause. But he noticed that Hisham's son was found taking charity from people. Subhanallah. So this doesn't mean that we don't leave anything for our children, right? But basically what Umar bin Abdul Aziz did was he gave them a good education, he took care of their upbringing, and he really focused more on leaving them with a solid education, connecting his kids to the Quran and Sunnah instead of connecting them to the wealth. And with that education, they were able to survive even by inheriting only 1 dinar each. And not only that, they were able to invest wisely, that they became very rich later on, and they started contributing a lot to society. So yes, Omar, good education is very important and that we must focus on, even more than the amount of wealth that we leave for our children. That was the level of service that our leaders left, the level of service that our leaders provided for the people. They were so concerned about serving their people that they were not even concerned about amassing wealth and taking wealth for their own selves. So just a quick check on just some thoughts on Umar's story. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. If you can go ahead and give me a few responses. What is your reflection on the story of Umar? What do you think about this incident. Yes, very motivational indeed, right? A great leader, very inspiring to learn, very humble. Look at the amount of humbleness that they have today. Yeah, not like everybody who wants to have their own house. And true taqwa, right? Such a high level of īmān that when responsibility was placed, very focused. Yes, good quote by Zafar there of Sheikh Yawar. Yes, education. Okay, I think we need to stop there. Good comments, very good comments. Thank you, Jazakallah khairan, for those who shared with us. So, Sidra asked how we implement these things on this fitna world, and we learned about the ayah before, right, in the first session. إن الله لا يغير إن الله لا يغير قوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم, right? حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. So Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. So first we change from ourselves and slowly our communities, and so that's what today is all about. How do we make that happen, right? How do we implement this change? Start with ourselves, then our communities, and so forth, until eventually, and by education and by bringing up good leaders, by building institutions that generate good leaders, inshallah, in the future, that we're able to change this condition of this world, and supporting, people that are trying to establish Islam and establishing Islam in this world, and making the ability, the reality of ruling by Islam, right? Not just in paper, but in reality. So these things, of course, will eventually lead. And of course, dua is the main thing to help accomplish all of that, right? So that's the process. The first thing is we start with ourselves. And yes, he was a very pious man. And, one instance say that his wife used to say that after he became the Khalifa, Fatima Rahimahullah mentioned that he used to wake up at nights and cry so much that everybody in the house used to wake up. All the servants used to wake up because he used to cry so much just by the fear of Allah. And when his wife asked him why he would cry so much, he would say that I'm just so scared. I got so scared that what I will answer Allah, that he's the leader of the Muslimin. So the responsibility is huge, and he recognized that, and how he would respond to this to the questions of that Allah would ask. That was a level. And the other instance that people mentioned, that he used to be a little bit plump before because he was a prince, right? And he used to have so much wealth before he became the Khalifa. And he, of course, they all used to have all big parties. The Umayyads kings used to throw huge parties in all the time, and they used to eat a lot. But after he became Khalifa, he became so fearful that he got reduced to skin and bones, and his clothes would not fit anymore. That much he was just about his concern for the ummah, that he lost so much weight and so forth. So that shows the level of piety in this world. Truly a great person to learn from. Okay, Sheikh Yawar's quote from Zafar: "We came to give and not to take. If we live by this, we will achieve the dunya and the akhirah." Yes, excellent quote there. That's true leadership, right? So may Allah make us all like this, or to reach at least a portion of the level of taqwa that Umar had, and the other great Sahabas before him had. If you sow a seed, it will benefit the society. Yes, in the 2 years that he ruled over the Muslim world, 2.5 years or so that he ruled, there was more benefit to the ummah than tens, if not hundreds of years of rule before him, right? So in such a short time, he made such a big impact. That's just because of his sincerity and true faith in Allah. And his thoughts were in the akhirah, as Rashida Sibabi says. Okay. Okay, so let's move on as we are closing towards our. I want to share with you the types of volunteerism. There is direct volunteerism, where you do some service directly, where you interact with the people that you're benefiting, like giving some charity, like giving some food. Let's hear some examples of direct charity. Go ahead and type examples of direct charity that you would interact directly with the people that you're benefiting. Go ahead and type, please. No need to raise hands. Just quickly. Okay, I think other people. Okay, good. Let's stop there. So we heard some examples there, helping older people in their activities, yeah, going to old homes, talking to them, teaching people, doing dawah, giving sadaqah, giving advice. Okay, what was some other? Giving food and water, exactly. All of these are giving basic needs to people. All of these are excellent examples of direct volunteerism. The other type of volunteerism we can do is indirect volunteerism, where we may not necessarily be interacting with the people that we are benefiting. What are some examples of this? Go ahead and type. Okay, giving to IOU, yeah, making donations, sponsoring IOU like what we're doing here, building schools, giving money, giving book to education, building masajids, empowering others, educating children, teaching online, donations, excellent, excellent, building hospitals, NGOs, Islamic schools, brilliant. Okay, we can stop there. Very good. Okay, let me give a chance for Bayana to finish her or his example. Okay. So these are all good examples, right? Give charity to organizations that spend in different ways. So giving to organizations that do various activities. So different organizations might work in different things. So giving shelter to other people, building shelter houses, educating people, donating in NGOs, building Islamic schools, or donating to masajids. All of these are, and some of the other examples that I read earlier are indirect. So indirect is when you don't interact directly. So it may be something like even if you have some skills and you want to help other people. Say you don't have much money, but you're good in designing websites. So building a website for charitable organizations, that you have good skills in graphic designing. So designing posters for organizations. This would be an example of indirect community service and so forth. Advocacy, let me just, what are some examples of advocacy? What is advocacy? What are some examples? Go ahead and type. And marketing help, also example of indirect, anything that's that you're not directly helping. Okay. Dawah mission, yeah, it's an organization that, yeah, speaking because it's weak, exactly. Advocacy is giving a voice to those that don't have a voice, right? More or less. So the poor people, the weak people, the oppressed people, they don't have means to fight for their rights, right? So advocacy is standing up for them, standing up for the weak by maybe starting organizations that fight for their rights, maybe law groups or rights groups and things like that, NGOs and orphanages, and speaking up that are oppressed and so forth. Okay, so we have a lot of examples here. Mobilizing for social change, yes. Like fighting for women's rights, fighting like awareness about spreading awareness about AIDS. All of these are examples of advocacy against abuse organizations, against women abuse, children abuse, all of these things. Exactly. Campaigning, yeah, good example. So this is also a type of community service, right? Animal abuse, yep, against that, fighting for rights of people. So all of these are examples of advocacy, and research also is related, right? Sometimes I will stop over there. Thank you for all those pop-ups coming up again. Apologize for that. Very good. A lot of answers there, so we can't look at everything. So good examples there. And research is another type. Yes, dawah and worshiping Allah is and spreading awareness about, yeah, would be now research is sometimes, organizations, this volunteerism research organizations cannot afford to hire PhDs and people with masters and so forth to do their research. or generally staff for having research. So you can even volunteer to help these firms do some research, right? And if you have some particular specific skills in some areas, you can offer to give your skills for researching. So these are some ways of different types of volunteerism.